Greetings. Today's focus, we're doing a 360 view of the area called the waterfront in Washington, D.C. at National Harbor. And I just wanted to choose my location for the view based on giving us a different look than the old car view video. You're going to see a number of bikes, some really expensive behind us, which is why we kind of chose this location for you to enjoy. So our focus today is that there's been a debate between Bob Lutz, Tesla, and the other OEMs about where things are going. And it's our contention that we're about to see a blast-off of Tesla's stock price based on a number of variables which we'll cover today. Thanks for joining us once again. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. If this is your first time, welcome. Please take time to like and subscribe for some ideas on investments in Tesla and others. Please join us on Patreon. So today I was on I like to send notes to our folks at Patreon that we don't usually do on the channel. And as I was preparing for those notes, I had to note that we're kind of in a slow news period for Tesla. So it's not a lot of fun to produce videos when you don't have concrete stuff to cover, because that doesn't give the viewers an opportunity to optimize their time. Hence, fewer shows, but try to maintain your quality of execution. So today's talk, I thought was really fascinating, kind of what came up. So there are kind of three components. The first component is a review of Mark Field's analysis. As you know, Mark Fields was a former CEO of Ford. He then left and he's working with TPG Partners out of San Francisco. And he had a really great series of shows that I highly recommend on CNBC, looking at EVs, where we are now, where we're going with Tesla, etc. So what I particularly wanted to emphasize today as part of the rest of the show is that Mr. Fields indicated Tesla is in a great position. The reason is that, number one, they're doing great in terms of production, growth of production and sales of current vehicles. The second thing he pointed out, which I think is the core of why there's a blast-off, is he looked at other businesses that Tesla has coming that are actually preparing to continue to push the stock. So what he indicated was that, yes, they're selling cars on the front end, and that's good. But what he also pointed out is that when you layer on the Semi, when you layer on the products they sell in terms of electric solutions, you now have a situation where there's a growth path for the company, and that growth path, not totally, but generally doesn't cannibalize on the previous wave of vehicles. So there are people who want SUVs or want the Cybertruck, but there are people that want the Y, and as you can see, there's a long line of vehicles that Tesla has. And so what I'm really hoping to hear from Elon is the path towards 500,000 Cybertrucks a year is what I'm hoping to hear. Right now we're in that, we'll get to 30K this year, next year 250K, but if that number changes in a northward direction in any way, I think that could be very positive for Tesla's stock price, etc. So in general, I just think the Cybertruck puts us on a new growth curve for Tesla, and that's why the stock has sort of trended towards bouncing up in this period. And I'm saying we're in the T-minus 30-day zone where we'll see this, we don't have huge numbers right away, but the vehicles are now being delivered rather than having a 5-year delay that we've seen. And so, let's keep our fingers crossed. I think this will happen. The next thing I wanted to focus on today is my Bob Lutz conversation. So if you'll recall, Bob Lutz had a really interesting set of concepts that he shared at this point about 3 years ago. What he shared was that Tesla is completely doomed. And there are a number of elements of this that he articulated, but I wanted to kind of focus on his discussion of the fact that when you look at all the OEMs, there's a process where between Audi and a large number of vehicles, GM, Kia, Hyundai, all these different entities, we're going to end up with a large number of vehicles that would be coming out. And that product stream from those other firms would kind of swamp Tesla. Well, I would say that we've definitely seen a lot of cars coming out from those guys. But there's something that we might want to think about that I just had a chance to observe that I thought was really interesting. So I had a chance to meet someone, and not really do an interview, but more of a discussion, who is a former CEO of Audi. And I asked him, I said, kind of what happened to the e-tron and some of the other entities sort of wiping out Tesla as had been predicted. And his response was very interesting. He pointed out to me that, well, the problem we ran into is that, yes, we can deliver the vehicle, but for cars that are only delivering about 200 miles of range, and you don't have a very good rapid charging network, you kind of run into the problem of wealthy consumers tend to be very well informed. And so those well-informed consumers are in a mode where they're like, hey, nice vehicles as usual from you, Audi, VW. They're great cars. But if I do my research and find out that there are a large number of owners who have a disaster on their hands when it comes to charging their vehicles, and you also have the issue of the difference between the stated 250 miles of range and the sub 200 reality that people have been experiencing. So you actually need those charging places to be sort of well staggered in terms of location. You also need for them to be working. And so the issue right now is that Tesla has a huge competitive advantage when it comes to charging facilities that exist, charging facilities in great locations, and charging facilities that exist in a quantity that actually fits what consumer needs really are. And so Tesla's winning this party because when those wealthy individuals who don't need to get rid of their cars anyway because they're nice cars look at the situation, they're saying, I wouldn't mind getting an electric car, and I wouldn't mind getting it from one of the big three, as Bob Lutz had suggested. But the nightmare is the charging situation is too ugly for me to put my dollars and time into those vehicles. Hence, Tesla is getting more sales out of this, and it delays the transition. So right now, because we have a channel on EVs, I get the Audi list of vehicles that are electric commercial all the time, and there are all these nice cars there, but as soon as you leave your home, if you go fast in that Audi two-door electric or those other vehicles, and you've cut your battery life from 250 to 150 miles, you're going to be constantly hunting for charging stations and waiting a long time to get access and charged up. And wealthy, well-informed consumers are not up for that. So, yes, Bob was right. These companies are putting out a lot of vehicles and have. The challenge is that consumers have put the brakes on the transition because they want an end-to-end solution that's well thought out. And right now, the thinking is there from the electric competitors, but the infrastructure to make that work don't exist. So sorry, Bob, and the VW and the other OEMs, until you guys figure out an efficient charging network, both in cities and in the suburbs, we're going to be stuck in this mode of Tesla dominating, you guys getting some sales, but losing a lot of money in the process, I believe, because of the phenomenon I just described. So the other thing I wanted to do at the end of this is sort of review sort of the inside and outside Tesla rumblings that I'm hearing. And basically what I'm told is that Cybertruck is ready to go. It is definitely going through crash testing for the units that are available, and they're starting scale production. So once the vehicle is introduced, they can actually have, not a lot, but a decent number of models that are sitting at pre-staged places across the country. So for those of you who are waiting on your Cybertruck, you might want to take some time to look around to see who's going to be getting first allocations, to see if you can get it where you are on the list and if you can get your vehicles earlier than later. So the final thing I wanted to, obviously I'm headed towards my health tip for the day, but I want to say to my investor folks, yes, we're seeing a nice position for the stock. Yes, Cybertruck is going to affect things. I'd say that I'm a little confused because it's one thing to have 100,000 Cybertrucks that are going to hit in the next month, as we'll see with, let's say, the Model Y, but I think the number is next 3 months, 25 to 30K worth of Cybertrucks. And so I think the mood on Tesla is going to be better, but I don't think in the short term, I think there's justification for a pop in the stock price. But I think to get long-term stable up and stay up and rising, we just need to see more Cybertruck production volume than what's anticipated currently. So, you know, I guess in the back of my mind, and I have to quiz some of my Tesla friends about this, is will they only produce the Cybertruck in Austin, or based on demand, will they reduce production in, you know, even China or Berlin or in Fremont to determine, to try to meet some of that demand earlier, excuse me, and therefore sort of consume some of the demand, you know, with a heavily vehicles everybody's waiting for currently. We shall see, but things like that could be game changers in terms of how rapidly stock moves along with growth in sales. At any rate, this is the end of our Tesla production area. I want to next move into our health portion. So, as you saw behind me, this area in DC is, we actually have a municipal golf course behind me, and then next to it, so it's probably about 3 by 3 by, about 3, I want to say 3 miles square, and then around that outside is all the bikes you see behind me that are doing laps around that. So it's just a really beautiful area to exercise. Low number of cars going by, so it's not, you're not going to get hit quickly. A lot of other bikers going, so you get the energy of other people going by. Really cool place if you have an interest in visiting DC. I would even get a bike rental and try riding that loop one time, because it's a totally amazing place to see and experience. So don't forget your 25 leg lifts. Also wanted to remind you of a 20-minute walk or something like that a day. Mental health and physical health impacted by it. Also wanted to encourage you to consider for 2 weeks maintaining sleep schedule at the same time, so, i.e. going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. I guess I'm going to finish out because we have some boats going by, and it's always fun to see the water and what's happening on it. We also wanted to remind you no more than once a week for fried foods. Behind me, you see those yellow boats. That's actually called a water taxi, so you can ride the Potomac instead of just going through the city normally. Very cool thing to do. And I wanted to encourage you to share comments. Please take time to like and subscribe. And this will cover our travel day today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Tschüss, au revoir, lahit road, hoda hafez, ni hao ma. And in Jamaica we say, enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and bye now.